Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new podcast of our actionable case study podcast. This is about real stuff, about real companies and real advice. I was thinking to myself how many times I've been to training sessions where they give you this advice, they give you this perspective or something to do, and you walk away and you're like, wait, well, that doesn't necessarily fit for my company, or I don't know how to do it. We're trying to eliminate that from happening. Here, we're going to talk about a specific company and specific things that happen for that company and show you how you could potentially do it for yourself. My name is Vinay Raman. I am the host of this podcast, and I want to check in real quick and say hello, Forth. How you doing?
Good morning, Vinay. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing super. So let me tell everyone who's joining in. Today is going to be a conversation between Forth and I. I'm going to set some stuff up, but this is actually really more about Forth. Forth has got just a wealth of knowledge and expertise and perspective that I think I'd like you to be able to partake in and be part of. This podcast is all about real world insights and being able to help business leaders navigate these complex team dynamics. There's so much going on in terms of employee engagement and retention, markets changing. So, how do you separate the wheat from the chaff? How do you know what to focus on? And that's what this podcast is all about. So, if you're joining in, please go to the right hand side there and tell me where you're connecting from. I've connected with people on these podcasts from all over the world. It's really quite inspiring to see how useful some of these insights are. So please go to the comments over here and type where you're connecting in what city, state, country. I would love to see that. I'm going to spend a couple more seconds here, and I want to start to open up with a question to for all of you, and Forth, I would love to hear a little bit from you. So today we're going to spend some time looking at a tool. And this tool, the reason we're framing up and setting up this tool first is because it's going to visualize some of the challenges in a company. It's super fast. It takes about 3 minutes, and it'll get you there in a couple moments where you'll visually, and you'll see some of this evidence a little bit later. How this tool makes it so easy for you to start to see the challenges. And when people like Forth, coaches, business advisors like Coach come in, the wealth of knowledge and how they can help you is just on a whole nother level. So I want to start with a first question for everybody who's listening in. And Forth, I'd love your thoughts here. This question is, I've written down some notes here, and it says, have you ever wondered where your leadership focus might diverge from your teams? As in, you're seeing this, but your team is seeing this. Have you ever wondered, how big are you guys this close, or just off the map, right? And have you ever wondered if these gaps could be I'll call it the silent brakes on your progress as a company? Those things it's like keeping the parking brake on when you're driving your car. You know something's wrong. You know you're not running right. Then all of a sudden you smell that burning smell and you say, oh, I got the parking brake on. I'd love for you to go to the comments and tell me, number one, have you ever wondered where your leadership focus might diverge from your teams? And number two, have you ever wondered if these gaps could be the silent brakes on your progress as an organization? Forth, I want to turn that to you. What do you think? You've run companies, you've talked with lots of companies, you've been an advisor to a number. What comes to mind when you hear those questions?
Everything for me starts with purpose. I'm reminded of this story, the John Wooden story. If you don't know who John Wooden is, he's arguably the best college basketball coach of all time. And he had this weird exercise that he did the first moments of every practice of every season. And they would literally go into the locker room and put on their socks the right way. When he would literally step by step walk through how we properly put on socks. And it wasn't that these 18, 19, 22-year-old guys didn't know how to put their socks and shoes on. It was a metaphor for, hey, we do things differently. We do things the right way, and we do them the right way together. And so I think, to your question, where most people get caught off guard or get offline is that they're not strategically aligned. We've got to start with our purpose. What's the reason we get up in the morning every day that's shared throughout the company and is acknowledged and reinforced every day? What is the reason we get out of bed every day when it's cold, rainy, there's no money in the bank, and the creek is risen? And so tools like these are what help us get past those struggles, but we've got to start at zero right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think of a car. I mean, I love my cars. So
You do.
the thing I always like to think about is if the left wheel is going left and the right wheel is going right, it doesn't matter how much power you got in that engine. You're not going forward very fast, or at least you're spending a lot of energy and power and gas, electricity, trying to get moving forward when your wheels are just fighting each other. Gosh, what if you could get both of those wheels going in the same exact direction? That's so much more
Yep.
powerful, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
So I want to do a couple things. I want to tell you a little bit about myself just so you understand a little about who I am. But then after that, I want to tell you a little bit about Forth and kind of why I wanted him on this session. So my name is Vinay Raman. I am the CEO of Carmo. I've got 25 years in the business intelligence, artificial intelligence, and machine learning space. So I bring deep expertise in these cutting edge kind of technologies today, right? And kind of infuse them with human centric growth in business. You know, throughout my career, I've founded a number of companies. I founded 3 companies by myself. I've had 2 meaningful exits, and it's all about sustaining growth, making sustainable practices, but it all centers around people. There, there's a joke I like to share that 20 years ago, when I used to talk about regression analysis and machine learning and artificial intelligence, everyone just used to roll their eyes and wonder who invited the propeller head to the meeting. It's funny. It's come some distance since then. Now everyone's got questions for me about artificial intelligence because it's something that everyone is talking about. And I think what's really funny about that joke, or kind of that transition that's happened in the world, is we've seen this fundamental shift in recognizing that the real power of technology is not just in the people itself, but how it amplifies human potential. Fourth, I'm kind of curious what you think about that last piece here. That technology is not really about um, the technology; it's really about amplifying that human potential, using tools, systems, software, whatever else, to kind of get them to the next level. So that's how does that sit with you?
It's actually a great point, and I had a discussion with a couple peers in Texas a couple weeks ago, and you helped me put on a little AI symposium, if you will, and because you, as far as I'm concerned, in our circles, you are the authority, and everybody's worried about this creative destruction of AI and what's it going to do to current jobs and things like that. And I don't. The more I learn about AI, the more encouraged I am about how it is such a powerful tool and complementary to what we do, because that it's just never going to be able to replace that human element, that human touch, that feel that we have between each other, that's primal, and we don't even understand it. But our minds understand the connections we need, and they understand that AI is never going to be able to match that. Again, if I told people 150 years ago that one day 99% of people won't know how to ride a horse or row a buggy or lead a buggy, they would have thought you were crazy. But now, I mean, people can count on 1 or 2 hands how many people they know that can really ride a horse. And so that's just part of growth, evolution in our society. And I understand why it concerns people, but it doesn't concern me. I think it's a hell of a tool, and I'm really excited to see what the future is for AI, and how people start to adopt it to complement what they're already doing professionally.
I appreciate that. I agree. It's going to be amplifying humans. I'd love to hear from the audience, and if you're joining after the live show, that's perfectly fine. I'd love to have your comments as well. Just type in pound replay, and then your comment. But the question I'd like to ask you is, I'd love to understand your sort of stance on this AI. Do you see it as a tool that sort of amplifies humankind, or something that's going to eliminate humankind? I'm curious what your thoughts and feelings, perspectives on that. Because today in this call, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about some tools that have been built with AI, and I hopefully you'll start to see they're actually just going to amplify the capability of organizations with Forth's assistance. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about Forth, just as we kind of get rolling here. Uh, I, I I think of Forth as what I call an ambitious pathfinder, and why I call him that is because he provides guidance, accountability, and sort of this life balance to high achieving individuals. I heard a fantastic stat once, and I've been using this for a number of years, and I've heard either other people using it, and so I feel it's a pretty profound statistic. That is that the average Olympic athlete has 9 coaches. So how can you expect to be world class if you don't even have the first one? or second or third. And you only get better as you put more of those coaches, advisors, and guides in place. And that's where I find the value in what Forth does is as that ambitious pathfinder. He helps guide and open up those paths for you to kind of get to that next level. The ideal customer for Forth is ambitious professionals seeking to support achieving life balance. It, when I was in my 20s, I would work, and I remember there was a period of time in my 20s where I spent 5.5 months essentially sleeping at work because just working 24 hours a day. I can't pull those kind of hours anymore, and I have no interest in doing so, but I want to be more effective. And I believe that's what Forth helps you find is that balance between high performance at work, but also being able to achieve that life balance. I think there's three attributes that I've understood or known about Forth customers: that they're driven, goal-oriented folks. They're successful in their careers, are already on that path to success, and they're feeling slightly isolated and overwhelmed because I've heard another thing that is being the leader of a company can sometimes be the loneliest job in the world. So there's this sense of overwhelm, there's a sense of isolation, and yet there's this ambition trying to push forward. Forth is a gateway into that next stage of development and unlock for you. Forth, how did I do that? Is that a reasonable characterization of how you think of yourself and what you do for people?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. You described me, and that's why I work with people like that. Is because I'm a father. I've got 3 kids. I'm a husband, and I catch myself sometimes at home. My mind's on work, or it's on my own ambitions and things like that. And I feel guilty about that. And I know mothers do this too. So I don't mean to isolate, but speaking for myself, that was something I've struggled with, and I still do because I really like what I do. I'm passionate about what I do, and so I catch myself not being present sometimes at home. And I like working with guys like that, guys that they have these great goals. There's something about them that is they've just known from childhood that they were supposed to do something that's special, something to change the world, and they're trying to balance that with being good fathers, good husbands, good community members, and being present in conversations with their friends, with their family, and so because that is me, I really like to, and I really thrive on working with people like that.
Yeah, I think it's a balance that we are not necessarily taught in schools. At least I wasn't.
Mhm.
Right? We were talking more about achievement and going to the next level, but we never really take a moment to look back and go, "Gosh, look how far I have come
Yes.
already." Number one, and some of that self compassion, saying, "I can't do it all, but I can be more influential and more effective in the way that I do it, bring others around me." And I think that's really what you like to unlock in people is you can achieve that ambition if you with the right support, right?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I sort of had this sort of epiphany recently, where I thought about different things in my life that I wanted to get better at. And I found that the things that I wanted to get better at, I was willing to sacrifice and take on some discipline that maybe is I'm not able to accomplish on my own. And it's interesting. I thought to myself, I meet people sometimes, and it's you can't convince them that coaching is going to be a value for them, and it probably won't be. There's a phrase in our business that says, if you drag them in, you'll drag them around. And I'm struck by that because it basically says that the things I'm not passionate about and willing to give 100% to, I don't want to be coached in. And that's true for all of us. And it's certainly true for me. And therefore, if you don't want to get better at something, if you don't want to be held accountable and don't want to be driven, then maybe you're not as passionate about what you're doing as you think you are.
I'll say that in kind of distill some of what I've heard in maybe slightly different way. Someone told me once, and it kind of caught me a little by surprise when I heard this. It said, "Pain is the greatest gift ever given to mankind."
Hmm.
And I was like, "Wait, what are you talking about?" It says you're in the 25th mile of that 26-mile marathon,
Yeah.
and you've got to decide, "Gosh, my body is ready to sit down." But you're doing it because you're raising some funds, or just because you said you're going to do 10 of them this year. Is that last mile something you can push through? It's the chance where you get to see what that level of commitment that you have internally. Nobody else can tell you what to do.
Yes.
Nobody else can keep telling you to run, right? But if you have the coach, you have the support network around you, have that compassion for yourself, really, to get there. This idea of balancing this ambition and balancing this success, and actually, you can. I think the word you use is you can have. It can be an and, not an or, right?
Yep. Yep. It's got to be an and.
So I'd love to hear from people who've chimed in. Again, if you're watching this after the live event, please type in the comments pound replay and then your comment. I would love to have that. I'd love to hear your comments or what's your perspective on this idea of balancing ambition and business success. What kind of first occurred to you when you heard that topic and caused you to listen in or register for the event? What was it? I'd love for you to share that. I think it would be really, really insightful to hear how others are saying that. I want to start to transition though, because this was all about showing you some visuals and a tool where you can really start to see an individual and how there's this tension internally for people. I got to go work hard, but I've got to have success and I've got to have this family life and things like that. I've got to balance all of this stuff together. And that's where I think we get a chance to hear a little bit of Forth and kind of how he sees it doing that. So I'm going to bring up a visual here that I'm going to share you. It's a company. It's a real company with real data, but we've changed the names and we've changed the name of the companies just so that you won't. We don't sacrifice any privacy, but there's real people here. So as I'm bringing that up, I'd love to hear from you why you joined this, what was interesting for you. Please go into the comments. I'd love to hear what that is so that we can start to tailor how we speak and what we diagnose here, or look at. And as Forth speaks, we'll talk to that and maybe answer some questions for you. Give me a moment here. Mai Tran says hello. Hi, Mai. Thank you for joining us. Tell me where you're connecting from. I'd love to know. Let me bring these slides up here. Forth, if you can tell me as soon as you see this.
I see it.
All right, let me get the slides here. So this is called the Actionable Case Study of the podcast, and it's going to be about empowering coaches, consultants, and business leaders with live problem solving. That's what you're going to hear here in next couple of moments as Forth starts to engage in that live problem solving. So I want to start first by setting up the stage of who this company we're looking at. It's called Arcadia Solution Innovations is the name of the company. It's a functional company we've put on top of this real data. It's been this report, this case study that you saw on that previous page is a 50-page report that gives Michael Anna here, the CEO, a snapshot into their company and where those alignments and misalignments are. And it also helps him, as well as others in the company, start to find out where that balance is between ambition and success. So here's where we go. Let's start first with a visualization that shows Michael Anna and how he answered this. This diagnostic takes about 3, maybe 5 minutes. It's really fast for every single one of your team members. This is how Michael answered. These are all the questions that we have. And on each one of these questions, you can answer on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 is highly confident or strongly agree. So you can see global presence, customer retention, operational efficiency, or areas where Michael has a high degree of confidence or strongly agrees that the company is doing well there. As you get towards the center, you start to see lower scores. That's a 1 would be right here at the center. A 1 would be right here. And you can see on revenue growth, Michael Anna sees revenue growth is not very strong at all. Global presence, strong. Revenue growth, not very strong. Here's where I'd like you to lean in a little bit as the audience. And I want to kind of send this out to you, Forth, for your interpretation. But I want to give a moment here. When you see this visualization here and realize that Michael could answer 10 on all of these things, he could answer 1 on all of these things. What kind of story starts to appear for you? Because I think as you start to understand the story, as you see some more of these, you're going to start to see a deeper understanding. We call these empathy graphs. You'll start to understand Michael more deeply. Forth, you see this. You've seen these types of graphs before. What story shows up for you in terms of Michael and what's happening for him?
Yeah, well, the greatest outlier is his perception of the global presence. It's a 9 out of 10. I'm curious to see as we go throughout the call here today if he's on an island or if that's shared throughout the company. I'm curious to understand, if Michael Anna were a client of mine or a prospect, I'd be curious to see, why do you think that? What evidence do we have to support that? The operational efficiency. It's interesting. You see a lot of times with CEOs is that they either think they've got great operational efficiency, and they do or don't, and sometimes they don't, and there can be a separation between perceived and reality in those situations sometimes, and then the customer retention. Hopefully, he's got a pretty good grasp on that. A lot of times, that's simple, analytical, statistical based, and so hopefully, he's got his finger on the pulse of that. The revenue growth, it seems to be a real problem for him. I'm curious to see if it's shared throughout the organization. Financial strength, as you'll see on the bottom right quadrant there. I'm sure those two are related, so it's probably something to support there. And then let's see, employee engagement. I'm a business coach. I'm a leadership team coach, so employee engagement is always going to be a sweet spot for me, and something that I always see as a real opportunity for improvement. And you see that's relatively low here based on his judgment.
Yeah, I love a lot of the points that you kind of brought out here, right? And I think something I'd like you to consider as you look at this is not about being right or wrong. This is kind of more directional, right? We're pointing north. I'm not telling you pointing at 3 degrees north. I'm saying north, right? Generally. This is the goal of this visual is you can very quickly start to understand, as Forth just kind of walked through here, you can start to see a little bit of sort of what's happening in Michael's head. This is not, again, about him being right or wrong. It's rather, this is what he perceives.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to kind of go to someone else, just so you can kind of start to see a little bit of a contrast, but hopefully you can see outside edge is strongly agree, high degree of confidence, inside center is a low degree of confidence and strongly disagree that they're doing well as a company. All right. So what we've done now is Michael Anna, and in this case, Dylan, who is his chief technology officer, just one of the other senior leadership team. We've brought them into the mix as well. Dylan took 3 minutes to do this diagnostic, and I'll show you how to do that a little bit later on here on the slides, or I'll give you the link to that. Michael and Dylan both spent 3 minutes of their time to take this diagnostic, and these are the perceptions that show up. So I'd like to ask the audience here the first question for you. You see that Dylan, the CTO, is in red, and you see Michael, that we just saw on the slide before, which is in blue. Question for you. Is there alignment between Michael and Dylan? And if not, what do you think is happening here? What kind of message or narrative starts to pop up in your head? Forth, how about you?
Well, again, I'll go back to the employee engagement. There seems to be a disconnect there between what at least Dylan in the CTO position feels about that situation at the company versus what Michael believes. There's a lot of misalignment here. Quality control. Dylan's bullish on that. Agility, innovation. I think those two go well hand in hand. So great to see that. But other than global presence, you don't really see any areas where they are on the same page. And so, again, I'm curious to see why they agree on global presence. But I'm always going to go back to that employee engagement because I think that's sort of the soul of the company. And I want to know more about that, frankly.
I'm going to stop sharing for a minute here just because I don't want you all staring at slides the whole time. Junaid says, Forth Heffner is a game changer. His real-world insights for business leaders truly hit home. The way he highlights the importance of sustainable growth and the mindset needed to balance big goals with practical action steps was so inspiring. Let me put that up on screen here. Thank you, Junaid. I appreciate you sharing that. I agree. This sustainable growth and mindset and the balance of those needed goals is really important. I appreciate you sharing that insight. Forth, you've got another fan.
Thanks. That makes two.
The question I want to ask. So I want to start with this statistic here, right? We saw, CEO over here, and we saw the CTO kind of point in a completely different direction. A statistic that I have here that I think is really, really telling, and I think you just visually saw that. So the study by McKinsey in 2023 showed that organizations with strong alignment are 70% more likely to execute their strategies effectively. Let me read that back to you. A study by McKinsey showed organizations with strong alignment are 70% more likely to execute their strategies effectively. what I saw between the CEO and CTO right there is not alignment. I think that affects the performance of that business. That is the silent brakes. That is the handbrake that's staying on while you're driving your car. Fourth, what are your? I'd love to hear from the audience if you all say the same thing, the same thought occurred to you. Please share in the comments. Fourth, what are you thinking?
Yeah, this looks like a common case of the CEO sort of living on their own island. Very common because of the personality type, first of all. We have real blind spots sometimes, and this is indicating to me that these two aren't communicating. And even if they are, they're not communicating fully. It's not an environment where people feel like they can truly share their positions with the CEO. Contrary to the employee engagement score being really good by Dylan, or really ranked really highly by Dylan and not by Michael. So I'm seeing on its face possibly a disconnect between Michael and the rest of the organization, which is concerning. And I'd certainly want to know more about that.
So I always want to bring it kind of back to I love what you're seeing here, and I want to kind of tie that back into the title of this episode, right? Balancing ambition and business success. How does seeing that help you balance ambition and that business success? What are your thoughts there?
Well, probably to me, I bet the CEO feels like he's pushing a rope uphill. He feels like he's alone. He has, common thought for people in that senior leadership position of the CEO is that I wish I could get my people to think more like me. I wish I could get them to think more like an owner. And I certainly had that idea for a long time, and I understand it. However, we always want to look at ourselves first, understand, hey, where have we fallen short? And it sounds to me like he has not curated an environment where his team, it's potentially even his leadership team on the C-suite, feel like they can be candid with him, tell him the truth, and let him know where they believe he's misaligned or they're misunderstanding what his vision for the company is versus what they have in mind. And that's causing them to pull in different directions.
I'd be curious from the audience if you found that those visuals insightful, and if you had that for your organization or the place where you're working right now, spending most of your time, do you feel like you could see more insights? Some of what Forth is saying here, do you feel like you could see that for yourself if you had that same sort of diagnostic value? Would those visuals make your life easier to see kind of what's happening? Because I want to spend a little bit more time talking about potentially this friction between these two now, right? Because I suspect what's happening is CTO Dylan, Michael, CEO, since they see things differently, when they come to well, let me put it this way. I know I've been to lots of conversations and meetings where out of a 60-minute meeting, 59 minutes are spent arguing about who is actually seeing things the right way. Forth, have you ever seen that occur?
Every day. It's why I have a job.
And I mean, that's counterproductive. You spend an hour, you feel like, oh, hey, we spent an hour talking about this topic. But did you actually ever discuss the topic, or did you spend most of the time just discussing who is looking at things the right way? And number two, if you're spending all this time just discussing who is right or wrong, are you actually moving the business forward? Are you actually creating that business success? Fourth, this is kind of what you do with people on a regular basis. Talk to me about that. How do you guide?
Yeah, and what you find is that even if people are communicating, they're only talking about the problem or the issues. And rarely are they actually talking about the real issues. They're talking about symptoms of the real issue. And so that's problem number one. And what we also fail to do a lot of times is, even if we can identify the actual cause, the actual culprit, do we actually come up with a plan to solve that problem? And, what's the accountability steps for that? And so there's all these soft sciences and these little tools and techniques we can use that people are aware of, but frankly, we're just afraid sometimes to do the things that we need to do and have the conversations that we need to have because we're afraid of offending people. And let me rephrase that actually, because I think that a lot of times it gets blamed on not wanting to be offensive or combative or anything like that. But what it really is that we don't care enough to solve the problem. And we get problem solved when we care enough to solve the problem. And I think that's what we got to ask ourselves. Do we care enough?
Yeah, because I think, and here's why I think sort of the through line on that is, if you really do want to achieve your ambition, if you really do want to achieve that business success, do you care enough to solve the problems that are the blocks, the handbrake on your car
Yeah.
that's starting to burn? Because I gotta imagine conversations between those two people, and we've just seen one example so far, right? There's lots of heat there that's probably created over time. There's also probably a sense maybe Michael just says maybe Dylan's just not the right fit for our organization, right?
Great point. Yep.
And now you're spending more of your time thinking, is this person the right fit, as opposed to letting Dylan do what Dylan does
Yeah.
and Michael do what Michael
And if
does.
you'll let me
Yeah.
sort of pile onto that a little bit, Benai, I think your point may well be absolutely true. However, as leaders, we've got to look at ourselves first and evaluate, have I done everything I can to put them in the best position to succeed? And we've got to start there first.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And I think that's what I'm hoping people, as they're listening in here, can kind of see that with these visuals. Now it shifts the conversation and the questions that you ask, and in between Michael and Dylan in this case. So I'd like to load up another slide here, and bringing up another slide on screen here, where we're going to actually talk about another member of that senior leadership team, just so you can kind of see somebody else. Give me a moment here. All right, so we've got another one here. In this one, we've got the CEO, which again is in blue. Outside is highly confident. Inside is low confidence. Michael Anna again says the CEO in blue. And we've got Victoria Schuyler, who is the chief marketing officer, sees things differently. And what I'd like to kind of highlight a little bit here is we're talking about different roles. Look, the way a CEO is supposed to act, the way the CTO, CMO, COO, CHRO, CFO, at any stage of the organization, right? Any part of the hierarchy, they've got to act a certain way that includes not only their personality, but how they're supposed to act in the role, right? And how a CMO is going to work is and sees the company and how they're going to operate in their role is going to be different than a CFO. You expect that. But this is not about personality here. This is about their being strategically aligned with the company. I'd love to hear in the comments, what narrative are you seeing here? You've seen Dylan potentially now. You're now seeing Victoria and Michael. What narrative are you seeing? Forth, how do you coach through something like this? Well, I mean, how do you have a conversation with an organization that's got this level of misalignment?
Well, that's a great question. It looks like this is sort of reinforcing my concern after seeing Dylan's profile, because Victoria seems to be a little bit more aligned with Dylan than she is with Michael again. And so this seems like there are some concerns between the CEO, the rest of the C-suite, and I fear the rest of the organization. However, what's interesting to me, I'll always go back to employee engagement. As I said, Victoria and Michael seem to be aligned there, which is interesting because she has employee engagement scored really poorly, yet she has communication scored very strong, which seems like they wouldn't be in alignment. And operational efficiency, those seem like those wouldn't be countering each other there. But that, again, that's interesting. It's a couple other really valuable data points here.
Yeah, I was thinking about that communication versus employee engagement. Lots of people talk about communication all the time in organizations, and I ask them, are you efficiently communicating or effectively communicating? Efficiently is, hey, there's a process I'm supposed to follow, and I follow the process, so I'm doing what I'm told right. There's effective is I'm saying the right thing. And I wonder if there's sort of a nuance here where we're seeing she sees that employee engagement is really low, as in people just kind of don't care, right? They're not opted in, but they keep telling them, they keep telling them the same thing. It's not going anywhere. Uh, Thoughts on that, Forth? Do you think that could be a potential?
Yeah, and as I look at this a little bit further, something else jumps out to me about Victoria. She's the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, and she's got brain reputation at 9.5. Based on all the other deficiencies in the graph here, that seems almost like a defensive vote for her own department. Uh, that would be really interesting because we've got, in her opinion, we've got great operational efficiency, great financial strength, even though revenue growth, she agrees with Michael, is poor. Great customer satisfaction, great communication, great quality control. Yet revenue growth, she's got it what, a one. So something doesn't line up there, and I'm dying to get to the bottom of that personally.
Yeah, so and this is something I'd like to articulate to everyone who's kind of listening in here. I mean, this is again, this all comes from a 3-minute diagnostic, right? Forth is just highlighted. This doesn't make sense, right? This brand reputation so high, it's defensive. I love that insight there because it shifts the conversation that you can have. Because here might be the deeper story, right? You've seen Michael is not aligned with the CTO. Michael's not aligned with the CMO, right? Perhaps Michael's putting a lot of pressure on people to kind of start to conform. And people are a little worried at this chief marketing officer level. They're a little worried about losing their role, losing their job. And they keep trying to articulate, hey, things are going well, but Michael may or may not be listening. Maybe a Michael issue, maybe a Victoria issue. I don't know the answer to that yet. But I mean, this is exactly the kind of stuff that you do Forth, right? But
Yep.
it might be defensive. Now we get to ask the question, why did you rate that so high when employee engagement is terrible, revenue growth is terrible, and your market position scores, innovation scores, strategic alignment scores? What's happening here? I mean, this gets us to vulnerable in moments, right?
Yes. Yeah. It gets to the heart of things. Instead of, we can BS around topics all day in a meeting or throughout the day, but this is where the rubber meets the road, Vinay. There's no uh, avoiding this conversation.
Yeah. I'd love to hear
This
in
is
the
the good
comments.
stuff.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a really powerful tool, and I'm going to show you how to get this tool for yourself at the end. I want to show you one more example here. I think this is the one. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
This
think
is
this
one
is
I'm
the
looking
slide
forward
that you
to.
like, Forth.
Yeah.
Let me introduce you to everyone. And Forth, I would love to hear your thoughts because you expressed some strong opinions about this slide here, right?
Yeah.
Some strong feelings about this slide. This is where we've now taken this whole senior leadership team. We've got 7 people on the senior leadership team. I've got 6 of them whose images we've presented here. But you can start to see CEO, CTO, CMO, so on and so forth. And again, this doesn't have to be at a senior leadership level. It can be at an entry level team just to find alignment. That's the power of this thing. Forth, I want to ask everyone else in the audience to see what they share. Share that in the comments. But Forth, you pointed this one out. You like this slide.
I love this slide. I think this is really powerful. You've done a great job with you and your guys, Vinay. I did have the benefit, because I'm a guest here, I did have the benefit of getting the information before everybody on here. And I was actually able to study a little bit further and make some notes on it. What I found was that there's some good seemingly alignment around innovation, quality control, and brand reputation, and agility. That's great. Those things are great. Again, everybody, almost to a person, agrees that we've got some struggles. Maybe I should say to a person, on revenue growth. That's very concerning. Again, communication seems weak outside of basically one or two people. Communication seems really weak. We already know who one of those. Strategic alignment is the one that really jumps out to me. We've got one person above 3, a 3 out of 10. One person. Strategic alignment might solve the problem for all of these other issues. Or if we could get everybody on the same page, rowing in the same direction, it might solve all of these other issues. Yet it's one of the weakest elements of this entire graph, and evidently of this entire company.
So I want to share a stat that kind of validates a little bit of what you're saying here, and I'd love to hear if the audience has got some perspectives here on this. Think about how powerful this, and this is not about right or wrong. This is how they see it, right? This is an opportunity to get everybody pointed in the same direction, right? All going north. Because right now, the best way, if you look at this at a compass, man, they're all going in all kinds of different directions. Gallup says in 2023 that it found that teams aligned with company goals are 17% more productive and 21% more profitable. I think those are really powerful things. You're going to add a fifth more revenue profitability to your company by getting all of them aligned in a similar way, bringing their own unique skill sets. Here's one other stat that really kind of came to mind that when looking at this. It says the American Psychological Association. This goes back to that defensiveness by Victoria, right? The American Psychological Association in 2023 reported that stress-related costs in U.S. workplaces exceed $300 billion annually, often exacerbated by misalignment. When um, people aren't aligned in an organization, you're part of that $300 billion that's causing stress related costs, sick days, being sick, not wanting to show up to work, looking for another job. Fourth, thoughts on the topic?
Yeah, 100%. Again, if we're not all rowing in the same direction, then we're running. What do we have? 2, 4, 6, 7, I believe, people
Yeah.
that we're scoring on here. You might have 7 different companies running under the same banner here.
That's right.
People with their own interests. There's nothing negative about people looking out for their own interests. That's how we're built as humans. But when we don't have aligned interests, we are going to be battling against each other. One of the questions that you and I discussed before, leading up to this was, when we've got 2 departments, say marketing and financial services, pulling in 2 different directions. Well, that's because we don't have an aligned vision. We don't have an alignment around where we want the company to go in the short term, midterm, and long term. And so, the CFO is going to be pulling in his direction to make sure that at the cost of everything, the financial health is good. And the chief marketing officer is going to be pulling in her own direction, making sure that brand reputation is recognized as a real strength of the company. And so, really powerful tool here tonight. You guys have done a great job.
Thank you. Junaid has a question here that I was sharing slides, so I couldn't see. It says, how does misalignment impact an organization that's generating good revenue? Forth, let me hand that off to you. And talk a little bit more about sort of the tools and the frameworks that you provide that might actually help in solving this problem.
Yeah, well, best case scenario when you're producing good revenue is that you're producing good profit. First of all, revenue is vanity, profit sanity, cash is king, as we say in my business. But misalignment around the impact of the organization is that, if our entire goal is just to produce revenue and we're aligned around that, then great, we'll produce great revenue. But our systems are designed specifically to give us the results that we're getting right now. And so a company that is generating great revenue is probably well aligned around that being a stated and clear goal. But I would imagine there are probably some other shortcomings around the company that are going to impact it in negative ways and ultimately bring down that revenue growth.
Thank you for that question, Junaid. Mai and Junaid, I appreciate the comments so far. I'd love to hear any other thoughts or insights, questions that you have for Forth along the way here. So, Forth, we've seen a couple of different examples of what that misalignment can look like. Let me bring this back to this title again, right? Balancing ambition and business success. Seeing this misalignment, you're seeing some of the dynamics, maybe some of the stress, fear for their jobs in this role. I suspect Michael's feeling that just as much as his team and team members are seeing that. Ambition and business success. How does this kind of tie back to that? What kind of goes through your mind as you think about that?
Yeah, I guarantee you when Michael goes home at night, lays his head on his pillow, and he and his spouse or whomever are having a conversation about their day, I guarantee you the topic comes up regularly. He says, I just can't get people to see it the way that I see it. I can't get them to think like I am. I can't get them to see where I want the company to go. And the problem in that situation there is not that he's wrong. He's absolutely right. But his approach is wrong because it's I instead of we. It's his company. And ultimately he has the right to lead that company where he wants it to go, assuming it's not board driven or something like that. And so that's his right. But he's got to lay out a clear vision for the company. What is the thing that we're trying to do ultimately? What's our purpose? Why do we get up in the morning? What are our values? Where are we going in the short term, the long term, the midterm? And who are the right people, the right fit, and the right talents to go along with us? And how am I going to communicate this to them so clearly that they decide on their first day that this is the exact right place for me. I'll never go anywhere else. Or, hey, I don't think this is the right place for me. I'm going to go seek excellence elsewhere.
Yeah. Getting people to a point where they can't, and I believe this is possible on a major scale. I'm not saying 100%, but 70, 80% at least, I think is doable. Getting those people to get up every day and say, they don't have to be doing backflips because they're going to work, but they're excited because it's fulfilling work and they do it because, look, they have their own purpose. I mean, I've got 3 children. I will tell you, they are a major driver of a lot of and last night I was back to back different meetings, different locations. But that's what drives me to get up every single day and do my work every day. I gotta imagine there's a lot of that for others too. And if you can help people like Michael see that and how they can create that environment for their people, you don't have to push them to come along. They'll come
Yeah.
along because it supports their lifestyle. Is that kind of what you're saying as well?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I want if you're a business leader, I want your vision, I want your purpose to be so radically stated and radically different from everybody else that 99.9% of people in this world would hear that and say, ooh, that gives me the heebie jeebies. That's not for me. But that perfect 0.1% of people in the world think, oh my gosh, that's my destiny. That's what I've been looking for my whole life. I am going to camp outside that building and wait at that CEO's door night and day until he hires me because I've got to work at that place. That is the perfect fit for me. And when we find that perfect alignment, we have those right people in our company all going in the same direction, the direction that we've laid out and have prioritized, then that's just gas and fire, man.
So I'm going to kind of step back and summarize a little bit of what I've had and kind of tie some of these things together, right? Balancing this ambition and business success. I mean, if you're not making this connection, I want to be very clear in doing that. We're not talking about balancing ambition and success for just the leader, CEO, Michael Anna in this company, right? We're talking about Victoria. We're talking about Dylan. We're talking about how all the other people in that leadership team are all finding that ambition and balancing it with that business success because they're all showing up every day, getting their cup filled up with the good stuff. And they get to do it every day and they get to be paid to do it, right? What a
Mm-hmm.
fantastic scenario to be in,
Yeah.
right? That's what you're saying, right? Forth?
Yeah, yeah. All of those vanity items, the revenue, the profits, and all those things. When I was getting out of college, I wanted to work in a big tower in a big city and have business cards, and I got all that, and I was miserable. But all those vain ambitions, they'll take care of themselves when we are doing things that are important to us and that are world changing in our minds.
I'd love to hear my Junaid, anybody else who's been listening in. Do you see that there's a possibility now by being able to see these visualizations, how aligned, misaligned people are, and a lot of what Forth has been sharing, it is possible to balance that ambition and business success together.
100%.
Can you all see that? Um, if you can, I'd love to hear it in comments. Please go to the comments and type that. I think that's should be on the right hand side of your screen. If not, I want to share some more slides because I want you to be able to do this for yourself. It's free, it's fast, takes about 3 minutes, and the report will come directly to you. And if you'd like to work with Forth, here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to type in Forth, Forth, into the comments, and I will connect you with Forth, or I'll make sure that Forth knows who you are so you can work directly with Forth and start to partake of his wisdom, perspective, and experience. But if you'd like to see what your graph is, with your own visualization, we call it the empathy graph. You can get that for yourself. Let me show you what that looks like. If you want that full case study, it's a 50-page case study for Arcadia. You can see all the diagrams, the visuals, the explanations, the statistics, all of that shows you each one of these people in the company, how the team members get along, who is kind of sitting out on an island by themselves and why. That's what this culture and role alignment index case study is. So if you type in case study, I will send that PDF over to you. More than welcome to take a look at it and see how it could work and what kind of insights. If you want to get your own culture and alignment culture and role alignment index, scan that QR code or go to carmo.net/SSP. I don't think it's case sensitive, and you will get that. I'll put that into the comments. And you'll start to experience some of the results that Michelle Lee said. Vinay, this assessment is amazing. It's so quick, and the information you get is from it's priceless. She went on to say it's fast, it's accurate. Give it a try. Luis said that the culture and role alignment index could help the company make significant improvements and potentially generate additional revenue. If you want to unlock those things for yourself, it's a free report. Just go to that URL or scan that QR code, and you can get it for yourself. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing again. I don't like staring at slides any more than I have to. We've got another comment here. Nicole has got a comment here. Nicole, thank you for chiming in. I'd love to hear Forth your response to this. Nicole says, sometimes it seems like parts of leadership are a bit out of touch with day-to-day operations. Amen to that. Strategic goals are important. However, leaders need to understand what is happening with employees' daily lives. Your engagement conversation hits perfectly at every organization. Balancing ambitions is important, but working with others to build the goals moving forward is necessary. Nicole, thank you for that share. Fabulous insight. Forth, what goes through your mind as you hear that? Now, I would encourage others to share their thoughts, just like Nicole did.
Yeah, that's a great point. Nicole's super sharp. She's a friend. So thanks for your comment there, Nicole. But she's exactly right. And there's tons of organizations out there that have great leadership teams that are trying hard, trying to do things, but are sort of dragging their teams along because they've expressed what the vision is and laid it out somewhat clearly, but they've not helped their teams understand, hey, why is this important? Why are we doing this? Why are we trying to change the world this way? And why is it important for you to be a part of this? Why do we want you a part of this? And how will you benefit ultimately? And that last part, the odd part of it is that a lot of us would not care about really what's in it for us if we understood how important it is, what we're doing and how we're going to change the world, or at least our little community.
Nicole's super wonderful share there. I'll tell you a quick story of ice cream. With my kids, trying to get them to clean up the room. I told them to clean up the room. I said I'll be back in 15 minutes. Came back in 15 minutes, and a bunch of stuff had moved off the floor onto chairs. Yeah. Not what I was looking for. I got to tell you, my blood just started to percolate a little bit. Started to boil a bit. I was like, that's not. I was like, well, hold on a second. Let me try a different approach here, guys. This afternoon, we've got a bunch of sports events we've got to go to. We got to go to someone's house for dinner. And if we don't get all the laundry and all the clothes put away and stuff like that, the room's cleaned up, we're not going to be able to make it all that stuff. By the way, we're going to one of your friends' house. Along the way, we're stopping. This was actually after a soccer team game. We were going to stop for a team stop at the ice cream shop, Goodberries, I think it was, here locally. I said, but I need you to put your clothes away and not just clean it up off the floor. I said, I'll come back in 10 minutes. Is that okay? I came back. That place was spick and span. I asked them, I said, what made the difference? They said, oh, well, now I know why I need to do it. Yeah. That was it, right? And that works with a 90-year-old. Why wouldn't it work with a 39-year-old,
right? Exactly. And to pile on to your point there too, Vinay, and I'm sure your kids, because I know you, they knew what a clean room actually was. But, in a lot of cases, we ask people to clean the room and they put everything under the bed or stuff it in the closet or on furniture, and they get everything off the floor. And hey, in their world, that's what clean means. But, as leaders, we haven't detailed what our version or our organization's version of acceptable cleanliness is.
Well, thank you, Nicole, Junaid, Mai, for joining the conversation. Hopefully you got some real value of this. I would ask one more thing, maybe for my benefit as much as Forth. Give me a rating of how good this was, how valuable some of the insights and things that you saw here are. This creates some clarity for you as to how you can solve these problems in balancing ambition and business success. 10 is this thing was fantastic. Knock it out of the park. Step over cheesecake. There's this podcast. Or is it a 1? I think I'd rather just go have a slice of cheesecake instead. So if you could go to the comments for me and type in 1 to 10. 10 was fantastic. It was a fantastic experience. You got some clarity out of this. 1, maybe not so much. I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer. It just kind of helps us understand kind of what you thought and what you got out of this. So my Junaid and Nicole, thank you for your participation, helping enrich the conversation. I love the shares. Forth, last thoughts, comments for people?
Cheesecake, man. Cheesecake.
Type in Forth into the comments if you'd like me to connect you with Forth. I'll get you guys connected. So you can start to understand what Forth does specifically for a company like yours or an organization like yours and how he can use his tools and frameworks to get you there. Or if you'd like the case study, type in case study and I'll send it to you. I'll also put the link to the free assessment diagnostic that you can use by yourself. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Thank you, Forth. Another successful episode.
That's right, man. Thanks for having me, Benai. See you, buddy.
Absolutely.